Welcome to Clothing in Christ. This is your host, Pastor and Teacher William Poulos. Today I am thankful and blessed to have Dr. Angela Everett, archaeologist and teacher, along here today in our Clothing in Christ podcast. Dr. Everett, thank you for being on our podcast.
As a consulting research professor at Trinity Southwest University, and I just want to make a plug for TSU right now. It's a great little school, and one thing I love about it so much is it's unaccredited. And I know that might sound weird, but TSU is great for people who just want to learn more because they have cost-effective degrees. You know, biblical archaeology, biblical languages, theological studies. So if anyone's wanting to just a deeper understanding of the Bible and archaeology, you can find me at TSU. Man, look us up.
Very good. Very good.
So, yeah, I've done a lot of digging the past few years, excavation work in the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan at a site called el-Hammam that after 16 years of excavation, we believe is biblical Sodom. And I noticed while perusing your podcast, William, that you've had Dr. Scott Stripling on and Dr. David Graves, and they've also worked out at el-Hammam.
Wonderful.
I think they worked in the seasons like in the beginning, and I came at the latter seasons. But yeah, we've all worked at digging at el-Hammam under Dr. Stephen Collins, and I believe it's biblical Sodom, and I'd like to share some more about Sodom later with you.
Sure.
But that's my background.
That would be great. And what are you doing today?
I'm super passionate about bringing the truths of biblical archaeology to just normal people like me. That's what I'm passionate about. Before I was an archaeologist, I was a homeschool mom for over 20 years to our 6 kids. And just like every day in the trenches, trying to teach my kids about the Bible and Jesus and God. And then after my education, I'm still passionate about that, just teaching people about God and Jesus and the Bible. But now I have this great new tool of biblical archaeology. Showing people that the material culture that we pull out of the ground through the science of archaeology illuminates and sometimes even validates the scriptures. You know, William, a whole lot of my colleagues, they're called to the world of academia, publishing papers. I heard Dr. Graves talk about that, speaking at archaeology conferences, and that's wonderful. And I'm so glad that there are people that will do that. But that's not where God's called me. Okay. God's called me to people just like you and me, regular old people sitting in the pew, that they're trying to figure out the whole God thing. They're trying to figure out the Bible. I yearn to act as a bridge from the archaeology field to the mission field and show people through tangible archaeological evidence that the Bible is a reliable historical document. And I know you feel the same way because you're doing this podcast.
Yes, absolutely. As an archaeologist and biblical historian, I believe you're most passionate about telling the truth. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Not only through the Bible, but through your archaeology. Let the archaeology speak for the Bible and tell the truth of the Bible.
Absolutely. Yeah, archaeology can tell us things can show us things that maybe the Bible didn't expand on. It can really give us some tangible truths. And I thought I would share maybe 3 of those tangible truths with you today. Archaeological discoveries, if you'd like that.
Sure, absolutely.
So I thought I'd start off with the Pool of Siloam because as Christians, when we read our Bible, we've heard of the Pool of Siloam several times in the New Testament. In John 9, Jesus heals a blind man by making a mud poultice and applying it to his eyes and then telling him to go wash in the Pool of Siloam. Well, visitors to Jerusalem have long visited a 5th century Pool of Siloam that had been built to commemorate that very miracle. But the exact location of the Pool of Siloam of Jesus' day remained a mystery until its discovery in 2004. So in that summer, repairs were being made to a drainage system when two ancient steps were uncovered, and archaeologists were called in, and when the excavations were complete, there was a large pool uncovered. In all, at least it had 20 steps leading down from the street level into the pool, and then pottery from one end of the pool dated to the 1st century. So we're very sure, scholars are sure, archaeologists are sure that we have found the Pool of Siloam from the time of Jesus. So why is that important to us? Because the Pool of Siloam is mentioned in the Bible, so we've confirmed that. And the exact location of one of Jesus' miracles has now been positively identified. That's cool. That's why I love archaeology.
Mm-hmm.
So, probably many people have heard of the Tel Dan Stela. It really set the archaeological world on fire back in the 90s. And it's because of this. You and I have had some private conversations about Bible minimalism. Well, that all started to grow. That movement started to grow in the 80s and 90s. Now, if you're not familiar with that term, Bible minimalists believe the Bible is of minimal historical value, given that it's not a reliable historical document in their opinion. So one of their prime targets for the Bible minimalist was King David. They argue that there was no extra biblical evidence to support the historicity of David and his kingdom of Israel. So many minimalists asserted that King David, he was just a myth, just totally a myth. And then others argued that if there was a real King David, his kingdom was small and insignificant and nothing like the Bible described. Well, all that changed in 1993 when archaeologists were digging at Tel Dan, the site of the ancient city of Dan in northern Israel. So while excavating part of a wall, they discovered a broken stone with an Aramaic inscription. The next year, 2 more fragments of the stela were discovered. Well, the inscription caused a sensation throughout the archaeological world and finally put the minimalist on the defensive concerning King David. So the stela has an inscription, and it records the victory of the king of Aram, which is like Syria, over the king of Israel and his ally, the king of the house of David. It dates to the 9th century BC, about 200 years after David's rule. And that phrase, house of David, it just set everything on fire. So this Tel Dan stela is important because we now have confirmed from an extra biblical source that there was indeed a dude named David and that he had a dynasty.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Are you familiar with that discovery?
I am familiar with that. Are you familiar with there was a gentleman who in the I think it was the early 20th century who was digging in Crete near Knossos, and he found stela, or he found large rock, flat rock, which were depicting a man running from somebody with a cane, and then the next rock had him standing up on a hill above the chariot. You can see it was playing a chariot that was chasing him, and then you see the water on top and bottom of that swirling. Well, that right there told the story of, and it made the story of Moses true, because so many minimalists tried to say that story was just a myth. We don't have any proof. We can't find anything. Well, of course not, because they moved on and they left, and the sand covered everything up, and so it's not there. But now that shows that those pieces right there show that the story of Moses was true.
Interesting. I was in Crete a couple of years ago, and I didn't see anything about that, but I may have missed it. I'm going to look that up, William. That's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. See,
so go ahead.
And so many of this stuff, so many things like that have to be proven to the minimalist.
Right.
Because if you pull something out of the ground and then you're a minimalist, you go, oh well, that Hebrew or Aramaic doesn't look like it talks about anything that we need to know about the Bible, and so it goes in a museum and they put it in the back room and then it's forgotten about. You see that kind of thing, and I've studied both not only biblical archaeology but Egyptology as well. You see that a lot with Egyptology.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
Well,
you have to ask yourself, if you believe in God and you believe in the Bible, then who would you rather believe? Kings and so on and so forth, the rulers who can not tell the truth and write it in writings of their people to pacify their people, or would you rather believe in God who has written the work that is historical and tells the actual story of what went on? And
absolutely.
That's what it comes down to.
Right, right. Well, the Bible minimalist, they wouldn't like the next one I'm going to share with you, that's for sure. I'm going to tell you about the site that we believe is biblical Sodom. So just like I said, I've worked on a site called el-Hammam in the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. Dr. Stripling's worked there, Dr. Graves has worked there under Dr. Stephen Collins. So we've had 16 years of excavation at this ancient city, this Tal in Jordan, that we now believe is biblical Sodom. And I'm just going to really speak to its destruction today. We could talk all day about evidence for Sodom, but I'll just kind of speak to its destruction. First, people want to tell me they want to ask all the time, like, well, how do you know it's Sodom? So very simply, it's in the right place to be Sodom. On the ground, it's a large city that can be seen from Bethel and Ai, which is where Abraham was when he saw the destruction. It's at the right time period to be Sodom, which would be the Middle Bronze Age, when there's a huge Middle Bronze Age occupational layer there.
Right.
And it has all the right stuff to be Sodom, which means all kinds of unusual destruction. So I'd really like to look at the biblical text for this one. I know everyone knows the story, but since we're going to talk about its destruction, I really think we need to remind ourselves about what the Bible actually says. Mm-hmm. So when we look at Genesis 19, 24, and 25, this is the biblical text. Then the Lord rained on Sodom and Gomorrah sulfur and fire from the Lord out of the heaven, and he overthrew those cities and all the valley and all the inhabitants of the cities and that which grew upon the ground. So the question is, if the Bible's true, if God destroyed the city exactly like that, archaeologically, would we see a site that looks different than other sites?
Right, exactly, yes. Mm-hmm.
We would see unusual destruction. Mm-hmm. Archaeologically, we know what destruction looks like in an ancient city, say if there was an earthquake. We know what the destruction pattern looks like, say if the Assyrians came in and destroyed. We know what that looks like. This site of Tal el-Hammam in Jordan looks very different. So first, let me speak to the scientific analysis team. So we've had archaeologists working there for 16 years, and in conjunction with them, we've had a scientific analysis team that worked for about 8 years. So these guys, they have, degrees way beyond me. I mean, chemistry, astrophysics, that kind of thing. And all they do is go around the world investigating sites that have been hit by airburst. That's all they do. They investigate airburst sites. After 8 years of being on the ground and doing all this testing at Tal el-Hammam, they published a paper a few years ago. It has a very long title if you want to look it up. A Tunguska-sized airburst destroyed Tal el-Hammam, a Middle Bronze Age city in the Jordan Valley near the Dead Sea. Okay, you don't have to remember all that. You can just look up airburst Sodom and you will find the paper. For at least a little while, I think it was the most downloaded archaeological paper of all time. Not sure where it stands now. Anyway, they concluded with over a dozen points that this ancient city during the Bronze Age period was blown up by some type of cosmic airburst event. So that's cool. They've proven scientifically that this city was destroyed by something out of the heavens.
Mm-hmm.
So what we see archaeologically, we see a site that's very different. Like most everything on the site was blown towards the northeast. There's like directionality to the destruction.
Right.
Okay,
right.
Archaeologically, that's weird. The destruction, after the Middle Bronze Age destruction, there was a 600 to 700 year occupational gap. Okay, archaeologically in the ancient Near East, that's weird.
Right.
When used to in the ancient Near East, if the Syrians came and destroyed your city, whoever was left, they would just rebuild. After an earthquake, they would just rebuild. They just didn't leave. And to have no one living there for 600 or 700 years, that shows us something weird happened here. Other things, like just normal things, like if you find a really cool piece of pottery, I'm just excavating, just digging, doing my thing, and I find this beautiful piece of pottery. On other sites, you would think, oh, the rest of the pot is around here somewhere.
Right.
But not at Hammam. We laugh and like, oh, the rest of this pot could be a mile away. Or it might be way on the other side of the toll where somebody else is digging.
Yes, exactly.
Because it's like a bomb exploded.
Yes.
Well, they didn't have bombs in 1700 BC.
Right.
So it's just highly unusual. Also, we have found several pieces of pottery that got so hot they melted into glass on one side.
Yes.
And we didn't know how that was possible. So the director, Dr. Stephen Collins, he brought these melted into glass pieces of pottery to a university and just had them independently analyzed. And basically he said, I want to know how this happened. How could pottery, regular old clay pottery, get so hot it turns into glass? Well, they analyzed it, came back and told him two things. It could either be a volcano. The magma would be hot enough to melt clay pottery into glass, but they said that's not it because there's no volcanic material.
Right.
And secondly, it could be an atomic bomb. And we know that's not it because they didn't have atomic bombs in 1700 BC.
No,
so
they didn't.
It's just this kind of thing that, and we could talk the rest of the day, William, seriously, about all the evidence we have that we believe this is biblical Sodom.
But can you do me one favor and tell the audience why and who started and when it started, that this theory of Sodom and Gomorrah being in the south of the Dead Sea? Because that's important, because it has been wrong for years, literally years and years and years. You know when that was?
Yes. So traditionally, and I'm talking the past 100 years or more, archaeologists, some leading archaeologists in early 20th century said that Sodom was in the south end of the Dead Sea. And tours were, brought down there, sulfur balls, all kinds of things, reasons people thought Sodom was in the south end of the Dead Sea. Well, I believe it's 2001, around the 2000, our director, leading world archaeologist, Dr. Stephen Collins, he was leading a tour to Israel and Jordan, like he had done for a very long time. And one night he was just reading the biblical text, Genesis 19, again, before he brought people to the south end of the Dead Sea. He was doing that the next day. Mm-hmm. And the more he read the biblical text, he said it just didn't align. He said you couldn't see it from Bethel and Ai. He said he didn't think it was a big enough Bronze Age city to be there. I mean, you would have to ask Dr. Collins about all his reasons, but he was uncomfortable after reading and rereading the biblical text, bringing people to the south end of the Dead Sea, where it had been traditionally said Sodom was.
Oh, you know that I would love to have Dr. Collins on my show.
No, he's brilliant. He's
Yes.
brilliant. You should, because he started looking and poking around the north end of the Dead Sea, and he happened upon Tall el-Hammam, and I believe, I'm 95% sure that we found Sodom. I mean, the only way that can make me more sure is if we found "Welcome to Sodom" sign, and it was signed by King Bera, you know.
Right.
But
Right.
I'm pretty certain we found Sodom.
Right. But doesn't also Genesis say that when Abraham looked back on the mountaintop, he could look back and see Bethel and Ai, but you can't do that if you're in the south because it's too far away. Am I
Yes.
not right?
Yes, yes, that's part of the argument, that you could not see it from Bethel and Ai, which is where the Bible says Abraham was. Yeah.
Well, when
So just
go ahead.
archaeologically speaking, Genesis 19:25 says that Yahweh overthrew Sodom. So that Hebrew word overthrew is hafak, and that means literally to turn over. Or
Right.
to turn upside down. I think about like a pancake, like we turn a pancake upside down.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling you, that's what we find at Hammam. We find a city that was utterly turned upside down,
Mm-hmm.
which totally aligns with the biblical record.
And
I-
if you look at the book of Revelation too, that's just some of that, or a good portion of that is what's going to happen at the end, because God's going to take this world and transform it back to the way it was. The 1/3 of the trees are going to die, but not all of them. So he's going to make a paradise once again, like he had with Adam and Eve. And if he could do that, and he certainly could do what he did at Sodom and Gomorrah with fire and brimstone. He's certainly capable of doing
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes. When the Bible says that God overthrew Sodom, I'm telling you, archaeologically, we see he overthrew Sodom.
that. Yes.
Finding Sodom is gracious. It is so faith-building. I mean, that not only confirms Genesis 19, but there are 46 other references to Sodom in the Bible. I mean, to say, oh, we found Sodom, and I really think we have, that's absolutely faith-building. So that's one reason I just love archaeology. You take it off the page, and you have it tangibly. I mean, like, we can go visit Sodom.
You make it come alive.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Now, the Bible is a living document. Real people, real things, real events, real history. Yeah. And archaeology helps us see that. It was a living document.
All right, Dr. Everett, when you're not digging in the Holy Land, what are you doing today?
I'm doing things like this. I'm on your podcast. Anything I can do to show people through tangible archaeological evidence that they could trust their Bible. That's what I'm doing. So I do the podcast like we're doing today. I write children's workbooks on archaeology. You can find some of them on Amazon.
Wonderful.
The latest one, it's actually a series with a publisher. The first one's called Dr. Angela's Artifact Adventures, The Search for Sodom. So that's kind of a middle school target. So I do have some books on Amazon. I write for kids. And I also, along with a colleague, Dr. James Barber, I have a speaking ministry called Illuminating the Bible. Basically, it's what we're doing today, but it's an all-day conference. That's what it is. A one-day conference from like 9 to 4 that a church would host us there. And then James and I tag team all day long. We talk about Old Testament archaeology that supports the Bible, New Testament, ancient cultures, ancient languages. Generally a time of Q&A and lunch and fellowship. And we also, at Illuminating the Bible conferences, we have what we call a traveling museum where we bring artifacts, pottery, weaponry, grindstones, I mean, from the ancient world, real artifacts that people can look at and see in person. So Illuminating the Bible conferences, they're pretty cool. I mean, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but they're fun. They're spiritually, it's kind of like a spiritual shot in the arm, really, to see all the evidence for the Bible. So yeah, that's what I do. go around anywhere anybody will let me tell them how archaeology supports the Bible, I'll go.
Yes.
So thanks so much, William, for letting me come on today.
Oh, yes. And I have one final question for you. What are your thoughts regarding the damage that minimalism has done to hurt the field of archaeology? And could this be tied to a lifelong exposure in our schools and college campuses to evolution?
Bible minimalism, my favorite subject. So the problem with Bible minimalism, and honestly, I'd have to think about how it's tied to evolution, but I guess they definitely go hand in hand. Is the Bible is not only a spiritual document. It's a historical document. And some of the events that are recorded in the Bible, they're not recorded in other ancient historical documents. So if you throw out the Bible because you don't like what it says spiritually, you're throwing away a very valuable historical document. The Bible is reliable. Everything that we have seen in the Bible as far as historically, it's been proven to be reliable. So you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and we don't want to do that. Right. The Bible is a reliable ancient Near Eastern document, and to throw it out would be very harmful because sometimes we can't get that information anywhere else. So I wish we just wouldn't do that. We would at least, if you don't want to take the Bible as a spiritual document, we need to at least take it as a historical document so we don't lose valuable information.
Right. I tell you what, Dr. Everett, you got to go down and visit Dr. Ken Hoban's Dinosaur Adventureland in Alabama, where he teaches that dinosaurs they've lived during the time of the Bible, and there are still a few with us today. And that the Bible is only 6,000 to 10,000 years old. You know, the world's only 6,000 to 10,000 years old. It's not millions or billions of years old. It's that right there. God created everything in 6 days. He was done. He rested on the seventh day. This is what he teaches. And he goes and he has gone almost 400 debates. He's debated scientists. He's debated astronomers, astrophysicists, biologists. Anybody he could go to a college university or an auditorium and debate them. People just come in droves to see him, talk about how evolution is wrong and the Bible is right.
Man, that's amazing. I didn't know he was doing that in Alabama. Well, I'm in Texas. That's not too far from me. I need to go check him out. That's amazing.
Yes, he was a former teacher, high school science teacher, and he did that for 15 years. He became saved through a friend of his, and then he started. He became an evangelist, and then started debating. And now he's also on Rumble, and there's a bunch of other sites where you could get on Rumble and you could listen to him and talk. He invites people all the time, to come and debate him. That nobody wants to come and debate him. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's absolutely fabulous. I'm glad people are standing for the truths of the Bible.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, Dr. Everett, I want to thank you for being a guest on Part of the Christ podcast. I want to take this time to offer you to come back and as often as you want, and they will enlighten all of us in the field of archaeology and history. How does that sound?
That sounds good. That sounds amazing, actually.
All right.
Okay, thanks so much, William. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. This concludes today's podcast. I want to personally thank you for listening in today, and to all of our listeners here in the United States as well as all over the world. We pray at Father of Christ that you read your Bible, you pray, and you attend church each and every Sunday. This is where the real learning is in the Bible. At Father of Christ, we fully support the missionary group, Voice of the Martyrs, which is out of Oklahoma, the Associates for Biblical Research, located in Akron, Pennsylvania, of which Dr. Stripling is a part of, as well as Dr. Ken Hoban, creation science teacher, debater, and evangelist. Dr. Hovind is the creator and chief operating officer of Dinosaur Adventureland, located in Alabama. Dr. Hovind teaches that the Bible is absolutely true and that creation and the flood actually happened, and the earth is only 6,000 to 10,000 years old. He's totally against evolution. He says it's not real science. He believes that evolution is also a false religion that is government funded, taught in our schools and colleges, exposing our youth to lies. You can hear these Plugged into Christ podcasts through Buzzsprout.com, as well as on Spotify, Pandora, iTunes, Podcast Index, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Alexa, Podchaser, Pocket Cast, Deezer, Listen Notes, and Player FM. This has been a presentation of Plugged into Christ with your host, pastor, and teacher, William Poulos. Until we come together for our next broadcast, we are here at Plugged into Christ. Pray that God will be with you. May God and the Lord's blessing be with you as you walk in faith in the Lord. Good night.